You're listening to the Foreign and International Medical Graduate Show, a podcast to inspire physicians in the process of immigration to the United States and access to graduate medical education. We create meaningful and helpful content that motivates medical students and doctors throughout the world, with the goal of creating a community that supports itself and gives feedback to each other, that stays updated with the most recent tips and advice on how to make it in America and become a successful resident or fellow in the speciality of your dreams. Dr. Alonso Osorio is board certified and residency trained in both emergency and family medicine and will be bringing you 20 years of his personal experiences, struggles, and motivation. We'll be chatting with people like you to talk about the lessons they've learned along their personal path, how to make an impact, and how we can all benefit from it. Also, we'll analyse the current resources available and how to benefit from them. Thanks for joining us. Please enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Foreign and International Medical Graduate Podcast, soon to become OsorioMD.com. And here we are, and we're all about hearing feedback from our followers. And some of our followers wanted to get on the show an international medical graduate residency training radiology and how difficult it was for them to make it into, and they wanted to hear specifically about an international medical graduate that fulfilled the dream. So I found a fantastic guest, Dr. Ihsan Mamoun, who happens to make it into radiology at the Cleveland Clinic. So Dr. Mamoun has a fantastic story, which, knowing that he was born and raised in the United States, he decided to pursue his medical school overseas. So he went to Jordan University of Science and Technology in Jordan, and he obtained there his medicine bachelor and bachelor of surgery, the MBBS, that many of you probably see out there through ECFMG certificates, and then succeeded to match into an internal medicine preliminary program in the Cleveland Clinic, followed by a full radiology residency at the same prominent institution, followed by not only one, but two fellowships, one of them in pediatric radiology and the other one in neuroradiology. Dr. Mamoun has been in practice for about 10 years, and we're so delighted to have him over. Thank you for taking the time of your day off to come over to the show and share your personal experience, Dr. Mamoun.
Thank you, Alonso, very much. Appreciate it. Happy to be here and share my experience.
I think this is phenomenal because many of our listeners say, well, I think I have to settle only for internal medicine, family practice, pediatrics, OBGYN. How can I make it into America? Is there possibility for any FMG to be a radiologist in the U.S.? Or what do you think are the things that need to be done to accomplish such a dream?
Well, if you have a dream and you have a goal to achieve, you set the appropriate steps to achieve those goals. And if you're walking on these steps correctly, you'll get to your goal. And, again, this is the land of opportunity. If your dream is to become a radiologist, a neurosurgeon, orthopedic doctor, you have the potential for that. Just do what you need to be done and give it some time, be persistent, and you will get there.
Fantastic. So, Ihsan, I know that despite the fact that you were born in the United States and you could have gone to pursue medical school in the U.S., you probably were thinking, oh, no, I don't want to go through those huge student loans. I know you're the son of a physician yourself. Mm-hmm. And I guess, like me, potentially now that my children will have a dual residency, if they decide to be doctors or citizens, they're dual citizens, they would like to be doctors, I will tell them, dude, go ahead and go to medical school in Colombia. It's going to be super cheap. Go ahead and fulfill that. You're bilingual. Just come back and, come back and do the residency training in the United States. I don't know what was the thought process 15, 20 years ago when you did that.
Well, my father is a radiologist also. When he came to the States in 1974, 75, he did his residency, he did his training in interventional radiology. In 1980, 81, he was finishing up. And at that time, the Gulf countries, specifically Saudi, were offering a lot of excellent opportunities for doctors. So he took advantage of that. And when he went there, he became a chairman of radiology in one of the big hospitals. And he's still there practicing. So basically, I was born in the U.S., but, eventually I grew up in Saudi, but we used to come back and forth between Saudi and the U.S. But, for me to choose Jordan, they had two excellent schools at that time, medical schools, and it was a 2-hour flight from where we live in Saudi. So it was kind of tempting to stay around my family, not to come back to the US for medical studies. In Jordan, they had Jordan University of Science and Technology, and then they have the University of Jordan. I chose the first one. It was an interesting experience. One of the advantages of being in medical school in Jordan that you immediately go into medical school. So 6 years, you're already in there. You do your first 3 years in basic sciences, physiology, biochemistry, anatomy, and pathology. And then the last 3 years are medical training. And then an internship is not a must. The 7th year is not a must. You can do it anywhere. I chose to do it in Saudi. And when I finished in 2004, I did my year in Saudi for my internship, or externship, you would call it. And I did my USMLE at that time also.
Wow. That's a long path. So when you went to medical school, you did probably phenomenally well, and then you took your USMLEs. You knew that you wanted to come back to America. Did your father say, "Go ahead, son, Isan, I want you to potentially consider going to the US," and you just kind of decided to head that path? You never thought about staying in Saudi or in Jordan?
Yeah, I think that my path was clear, that eventually I will be in the US. So I didn't have any options. I didn't look into other, countries. I'm a US citizen, and eventually I need to come back here. And, so to do my USMLE was like a very crucial step, and I had to score really high to match in the things I need to match in.
Isan, just to kind of piggyback into what you just said, I'm surprised that you decided to come to the US. I guess the American dream is always there, but me as a foreign medical grad, at some point in time during the transition period of my job in Texas and my job in Florida, I actually went through the interviewing process and recruiting process with the Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi. Mm-hmm. And I went to Cleveland, Ohio, and then they took me over to Abu Dhabi, and I visited the facilities for about a week. They treated me like a king. They gave me like a fancy car and nice hotel reservations, and it was a phenomenal experience. I interviewed with about 12 different chairmen, and they wanted me to come and stay, and I thought that they were going to be staying, but I realized that probably the money was not what I was expecting, so I decided to kind of stay in America. But the considerations has always been there, and the Middle East always has the need for foreign trained doctors, because I think that there is a need for specialists like you. And especially they wanted to bring a brand trained emergency medicine physician into the country. And they recruited a bunch of UK and US grads, and they have a very solid program. And I think they're doing a phenomenal job. So having pitched into the Cleveland Clinic, how a person is able to make it into the Cleveland Clinic, what was the things that you did right on the USMLEs to score highly, and how was the interviewing process for you?
You need to have a strategy. One of the things is obviously to get the excellent scores. And then, do some, get the opportunity to do some observation, observerships. If you're willing enough, you can do research opportunity in these facilities. So people would know you, your personality. Besides being, achieving well in your academic duties, you need to show that you're a good person. You need to show that you blend in with the people around you, a fair person to deal with. You're nice. You are, doing what's supposed to be done, being on time, doing your job. This is what all jobs or places or residencies will look into applicants. So they would like to see someone who's punctual, who's on time, who's fun, and who would deal with others, especially the colleagues, the attendings. And all these kind of helps. If someone comes in and, obviously he's always late, he's not that fun to be around him, I don't think his chances will be that great to join any place. So,
do you think that the program directors in radiology are looking for a specific personality profile? And I mean, no offense. I work in emergency medicine where definitely we have to have daily patient contact interactions. And you do, specifically with children and in radiology. But in my personal case, they want a person that is like a people person. I guess the radiologists spend more time behind the computer screen. What do you think is the personality that somebody that has to go into radiology has to have?
Obviously, be smart, be able to pick up things quickly, know how the clinicians want their kind of what they're hinting for when they order something. And in radiology, when you're in the beginning of it, you're always sitting next to the attending. So you have to be kind of engaging, a little bit of have a good, funny, character, entertaining. Not meaning that you're doing any circus-like act, but you're a fun person to be with. You pitch in some information, some good news here and there, and you learn. You have a nice collegial discussion with your attending, and eventually, once you progress into the training, you'll be on your own. But you'll have to sit back to the attending to sign out what you have done. So this interaction is important. They want to know the personality of the person. Besides being smart, as I said, you have to also have a good, keen eye, understand what the clinicians want, and, create a nice, funny environment around you.
Why so competitive to become a radiologist? I know that it's one of the top residencies that is kind of up there because obviously the financial compensation is significant in the United States. You make very good money as a radiologist, specifically if you do a lot of fellowships. Do you think only the fact that you guys are up there in the upper percentiles of financial income, what else would you say that plays a role in making radiology so competitive?
I think any specialties, they go into cycles. Maybe now the cycle of radiology is a little bit higher. Maybe because of the lifestyle, people would be in their office working and reading. You don't have a lot of patient interaction like the usual clinicians. So all that may be a little bit tempting for people to join practice. It also depends on your personality, if you like that or not. Some people cannot sit on a chair and just, looking at monitors. That's not possible for them. But, if you feel that you are fit for radiology, I would think a good percentage of the new generation would see this as a good job for them. And why it's competitive, maybe the pay is good. It depends on where you practice, how hard you work, obviously. If you're doing procedures and interventional radiology, you're on call a lot, so that's even within radiology, you have to choose what kind of a lifestyle you want. It also depends on where you want to live. Some places may not be that competitive to get into radiology. Others are very competitive to be in radiology. You can go to a remote town or city where they have a residency program, and you may be able to get into radiology if you really like just the fact that you're in a radiology training program. And currently, it dipped down a little bit, the demand for radiology around 2005, 2006, and then soars back up, dips back again, soars back up. So it all depends on where you hit that cycle when you're applying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me step back a little bit and go back to medical school. So let me give you an example. I'm a foreign medical graduate from Colombia. And when I interviewed, sometimes people said, oh, and they read my university name, Universidad Industrial de Santander, Industrial University of Santander, Colombia. And they have no clue where is that. And sometimes you get a little bit they get a little biased because of where you train. In your case, being a United States citizen, did they ask you ever why you decided to go overseas for medical school? Do you think that was a pro, a limitation? How did the programs director see it? Did he help you?
In my interview process, you meet, when you apply for radiology, you apply for two things at the same time. You apply for the transitional year and you apply for the radiology program. You match for the first and you also match in radiology for the following year after the transitional year. So during that interview process, you go to, if you're interviewing for 14 radiology programs, you probably a good idea also to interview for 10, 11, 12 transitional or preliminary programs all at the same time. So I was all over the country doing my interviews, and you meet a lot of people. When you explain yourself and where you come from, people have good understanding, especially if you're able to present yourself well and explain how professional your medical school is and where it is ranked according to different universities. And people understand quickly that if you're trained well, you'll have the confidence, you'll be able to show how your training was in your medical school.
Awesome. Dr. Mamoun, can you tell us how it works exactly to find a preliminary position followed by a radiology position? I know that many people find transitional years, and when you look for a transitional year, that doesn't necessarily is attached to a PGY2, but preliminary positions for radiology are available, and those are definitely linked with a PGY2 in radiology, correct? So I guess it's better just to apply to a preliminary position instead of a transitional position, or how that works?
So in radiology, you have the option to choose either preliminary medicine, preliminary surgery, or transitional year. Okay. Transitional year includes medicine, surgery, and different, elective rotations. Prelim medicine is obvious. You're going to do all the rotation in medicine and hemonc and nephrology and neurology. Then prelim surgery is the same thing. You're doing general surgery, you're doing neurosurgery, rotation, you're doing other. But you have the option. They're not really strict in what kind of transitional year or preliminary you're going to do. The idea is if you want to do interventional radiology, maybe it's a good idea to do surgery prelim year or do a transitional year where you're going to be exposed to surgery. So that gives you an idea that you're going to do procedures, you're handy, you know how to suture and all that stuff. On the other hand, if you're going to be like a body imager or, any other kind of imager, probably a good idea to do prelim medicine or transitional year. Yeah.
So the preliminary transitional year, we can call it the internship, is the first year of 5 years of residency program in radiology?
Yes.
Do you have a 6-year program or it's only 5-year programs always?
No, it's a 5-year program, yeah.
So it's a 5-year programs with 1 year of preliminary or transitional.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an interest on potentially becoming fellowship training in interventional radiology, you could do a surgical internship that has more hands-on experience in the surgical specialties.
Yes.
So for our listeners, preliminary years and transitional years, you have months-long rotations in average in the different specialties. So if you're in internal medicine, you will go through all these specialties for internal medicine. But if you do a surgical internship, you will always have rotations in all the different surgical specialties and immediately linked with a PGY2 as a resident. Dr. Mamoun, how do you apply to the match? How do you do the whole process? When you said that you have to interview for preliminary first and then at the same time interview for radiology as well, or how that goes?
So, before September, when they open the ERAS, you have to have all your things set up. You have to have taken your step 1, 2, 3, CS, and get your ECFMG certificate. 3 is not a must, but if you have it, that's a plus, And then, by September 1st, you start applying for the radiology programs. For example, this year, they'll open up in September 2020, okay? You're going to start applying for the internship or the preliminary program starting in June or July 2021. And you'll also apply for radiology starting in June, July 2022.
Wow.
Okay? So you're applying at the same time for these 2 spots. And then again, you send your CV, your ERAS application to, 100 radiology programs. And probably you need to do like 60 or 70 programs, maybe more, maybe less. It all depends on where you want to be. It depends on how competitive you are. For IMGs, you have to apply for a lot compared to US graduates. They have probably less money to spend on their application compared to IMGs. We spend a lot of money on that. ERAS is not cheap, so you have to put like thousands of dollars in applications to match.
Before you decided to make this process, did you do a lot of work in Jordan or Saudi Arabia and save money or put money aside before you took on this process?
Maybe my dad, he helped me a lot. He was generous to support me during this, medical school and, transitioning to my new job in residency. And, he didn't ask me to pay him back, but it was out of his goodwill to give me the money for what's needed. Obviously living in Jordan and doing my medical school is probably, 60, 70% cheaper than being in the US. So working hard and, achieving what I need to be doing in my USMLE and doing the right steps made it easy for me to transition without having a lag or a big hiatus.
Our listeners are always concerned about how they're going to finance themselves through this process. And I will tell you, the circumstances are very personal and, there's going to be individual implications into how the process is being done. Not everybody has the funding. Some people have to work hard for a couple of years to put some money aside. Some people have the blessing and the luck that you're supported by your family, like it happened to me and it happened to you and some of our guests. That's the way they have done it. But obviously, you all have to consider, that there is going to need to be some financial investment in this process. You said that you interviewed for about 12 to 14 preliminary positions during your first match residency application process?
Yes, I think 12 for radiology and also 12 for prelim. I think the number 12 is a good number to think about, to have, because it will improve your chances of matching.
You said that you applied to about 100 of them?
Yeah, maybe more.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you heard that, if you want to really try to make it into radiology in the US being an IMG, consider to apply to more than 100 residency programs across the country for preliminary and radiology categorical positions. So then you went on to do a pediatric and neuroradiology fellowship. That's 2 years on top of your 5-year training.
Yes.
How that goes and how competitive it is.
Well, for pediatric, I wanted to keep my skills in general skills in radiology. So basically, I wanted to keep on reading neuro, the general X-rays, the CTs, the ultrasound, the fluoro. And the training in pediatric helped me keep those skills. At the same time, I'm switching some of my differential diagnosis, my approach to things a little bit different because of the different age groups. But at the end, the general skills are preserved. At the end, eventually, I wanted to, on the long term, I had the idea in my mind, I don't want it to be too super specialized and to be fixated just with pediatric. I wanted to open up my career in also private. So that's why after 5 years in practice in Cleveland Clinic, I thought of switching to a private practice group like what I'm in now in Tampa, Florida. So I'm doing some of the general radiology. I'm also doing some of my pediatric fellowship trained work. And also I wanted to have an extra niche in neuroradiology. And, that year helped me a lot. I had the capability of doing neuro for adults and pediatric. And at the same time, I did my pediatric fellowship. I also did pediatric neuro. So I got a good niche in pediatric and neuro in these years. And when I stayed as a staff and attending in Cleveland Clinic for 5 years as a pediatric radiologist, I was also doing a lot of pediatric neuro.
Cool. So there's a lot of things that need to happen to become a radiologist. Many people ask, do you think if you work hard, you can find a position? Or what are the chances overall? You said that you need some good observerships. Right now, nowadays, it's extremely hard to find observerships in the United States. And I heard some ridiculous prices of about $1,000 to $3,000 a month to find an observership across the United States. How did you happen to find yours?
I mean, in 2005, when I was applying, there's no money involved. This new fee for observership, probably in the last 5-6 years. I had a good friend, Dr. Walid Fatahi. He helped me get my observership in Cleveland Clinic. And, that was a good blessing to have a good connection with someone inside. So go ahead and, talk to people, connect, go to a meeting, always be engaged. You never know how things happen. So don't sit idle and think that the radiologist is going to come to you. No, you have to be there. You have to be engaged. You have to be talking. You have to show that you're really interested in radiology. This is your dream. This is your passion. You have to do research in it. The common sense in life, if you want to do something, you want to get something, you have to work for it, show interest, and do the correct steps.
How many letters of recommendations do you obtain for the match?
I think one of the best things you would do, probably get a letter of recommendation from famous people. If you're able to connect with those people, shadow them, it will be a huge blessing. Obviously, I got my letter of recommendation from a medical school, but the most important letter of recommendation is when you come to the States, when you start your observership, your shadowing, you need to, make sure you impress those people you're working with.
How do you impress a radiologist? Because in my personal case in emergency medicine, you go and see cases, you do the whole history and physical, and then you present the case, you present the differential and the worst case scenario and how you're going to work them up. That's for a clinical medicine path. How do you impress an attending in radiology? You said you do a lot of research, but once you sit down and you're reading images, have you done a lot of personal reading and you know how to interpret the test, the images, or how does it work? How do you make yourself look good?
Yeah, maybe, it's a two-edged sword. You have too much knowledge and you're too young, or, you're not a resident yet. You don't want to show off too much and, step on others' toes, So you have to have a wisdom how to you and approach things. You may show, when you're asked, show that you know. You don't know, obviously, just stay quiet, say you don't know. But if you know, just say what needs to be said. Don't say too much. Don't, jump into things. Don't say, ridiculous stuff. Be humble, be nice. If they ask you for a task, for example, look up Salter-Harris type 2 fractures. Next morning, you come in and, you present, you give your presentation and tell them, what you find. And, so they will like you. They know that you're motivated to learn and do stuff.
What is the environment in radiology during the training? I know that sometimes in surgery it's a little bit toxic, I would say. The interaction in between people are a little bit harsh. You guys, for the most part, you're pretty mellow people, and when we interact over the phone, we have a great relationship, especially us emergency physicians have to have a great relationship with our radiologists. What is it like during residency training?
Well, I think there are personalities. Even within radiology, you have personalities. You'll see the mellow type, you would see the little bit aggressive type. So you have to learn how to deal with each person. This is part of life, I think. Nothing is always nice and shiny as we expect. Some places they're very toxic in radiology, and others are nice. So you'll have to dig in before going into that place.
You had said that it is important to get letters of recommendations from very important people. Obviously, these very important people are really hard to get to. They have limited time, limited access. Let's say, for example, the chairman of the Department of Radiology of X prominent medical institution is a person that is extremely busy. He publishes, he does research, he also does clinical shifts. That's what I have found difficult. For me, it was really, really hard to get to approach these people. How was your stepping in? How do you get close to these people and say, Dr. X, my name is Isan Mamoun. I'm a foreign medical grad and I'm here in Cleveland doing observerships. How can I follow you for about a month to see and do an observership with you? What type of approach you did that could help our IMGs that are willing to go through radiology?
If you were able to go to bump into one of these big names, and even if you start your way, just be able to be in an observership, try to get that connection with someone important. Like some people, if you're in an academic place, you would see people publish a lot in body imaging. So try to be there, try to show your interest. Even if you're there for a month, try to collect data, try to collect articles, summarize things. Be engaged. Even if your name is not going to be on that paper, but at least they remember you. They put a good letter for you. It may help you match in their program. Okay, stuff like that. If you're lucky enough to meet with a chairman of radiology, or just be there, try to take advantage, and don't waste that opportunity.
Looking back to year 2005 when you were applying, what things you did now looking back that you think you could have done better, things that you could have improved and probably avoid certain mistakes?
Certain mistakes. For example, my preliminary year in medicine was a little bit tough. So some people did their transitional year in Hawaii, for example. So they enjoyed their time. I didn't. So it all depends, maybe it was tough, but, I learned from it. If I would probably think about it again, probably I would choose another place, take advantage of that year to meet other specialties, and I'll probably think twice before doing it in medicine. But again, it's, it helped me. It didn't harm me.
Okay, so that's probably the only thing that you could regret. So it's been a tough path. It's been a long path. Any other tips of advice to our FMGs that want to come into America and become just a doctor in the U.S.? What would you say from people from the Gulf countries specifically that is the biggest barrier to overcome when immigrating to the United States?
Besides the immigration issues and policies and visas, just make sure you try to get very, very high scores in USMLE. That's a very crucial step because, the number one filter for all these IMGs is their USMLE scores. And then number two, try to engage into research and publication early on. This is very important. Know how things are written, how you publish, how to write a paper, how to write a case report, and how to write a series, a meta-analysis, and all that stuff. This is one of the deficiencies, I think, for IMGs. They're not that exposed. And, if you overcome that and, learn on your own or find someone in your country who's willing to do research, just, get engaged early on.
Well, Dr. Mamoun has said it. Work hard, get committed, working and considering about 100 programs to apply to or more to obtain about 12 to 14 interviews for preliminary positions and radiology categorical positions as a PGY2. Be on time, be professional. You need to be also a good person, but you need to also demonstrate proficiency on doing research and obviously have fantastic USMLE scores. As of now, USMLE Step 1 is turning into a pass-fail score. Step 2, clinical skills is suspended. And step 3, we're trying to figure out how it's going to be. But for now, this interviewing process of 2020 is going to be one of the most different ones in the world because most of the interviewing are going to be had through telemedicine. So, well, thank you for coming to our show, Dr. Mamoun. I hope people takes advantage of your advice and recommendations because they wanted to hear it from a radiologist that is an IMG like me, and I know they're going to enjoy it so much. So call to action, please do not forget to follow us on all our electronic platforms and leave us feedback. If you guys think that we deserve a 5-star review, leave it in iTunes podcast application and leave us a review. And feel free to send me an email. I love to hear from you guys, specifically any people, any guests that you want to have in our show. Dr. Mamoun is here because you requested it, and I hope this answers many of your questions. So thank you for listening, and please remember to share because sharing is caring. Thank you, Dr. Mamoun.
Thank you, Alonso, very much. We'll see you back in the hospital soon.
Thank you, Ishan.